Aston Martin are now closing in a massive contract with Adrian Newey, and despite his role being less active than what he has been doing in Red Bull, the Silverstone-based squad are willing to pay the big bucks in order to secure the services of the 65-year-old mastermind. Obviously, with Honda's exclusive partnership with Aston Martin, they do have a lead over the rest of the grid, given the fact that Adrian already has established working relationships with a lot of high-profile people from the Japanese manufacturer. So with all this in consideration, will Newey be the latest bombshell in the F1 market? And more importantly, what is the next goal of Aston Martin? It's safe to say that Newey to Aston Martin, while rumoured for quite a while, has turned out to be one of the biggest bombshells that the Formula One sport could have lived through. As per Autosprint, we should be expecting an announcement regarding Newey joining Aston Martin as early as in September, due to some complications that Adrian has with his current contract with Red Bull, and this is something that should be shaking up the entire Formula One world, because they're not going to stop here. Verstappen has been set as another primary target from 2026 onwards. But we'll get to that later in this video, as first we want to talk about Newey's move to Aston Martin and what type of role he will get, and more importantly, for what amount of money will he offer his services to the struggling squad from Silverstone. The original report states that Newey would receive an astronomical sum of money, around 25 million euros per year, as his contract has been signed for 100 million euros over 4 years. This is definitely a sign from Aston Martin that they're willing to get back on the winning ways. And even though Adrian is unlikely to serve a role as a chief technical officer or technical director with the arrival of Enrico Cadile, he would be offering his services in a more remote working type of way. This is why Aston Martin were the leaders in terms of landing the signature of Adrian, and this is definitely now shaping up to be a great platform for them to sign Verstappen as well. Adrian Newey has been pursued by Aston Martin for quite some time, as the team even held a private walking tour that was only for him and Lawrence Stroll through the factory in Silverstone, as every member was asked to leave due to potential footage being leaked in the media. But obviously Lawrence means business and he doesn't plan on stopping anytime soon, which is something that has been quite affirmed by his latest move to sign Newey for such a large sum of money. The support from Aramco is also there, and Adrian has been convinced that the mid to long-term planning of the team is in the right place. All they need to do is fine-tune the details with the car, and once Honda comes in from 2026 onwards, they're a legitimate contender for race wins and championships. While this would catch many by surprise, it shouldn't be as shocking as you'd normally perceive it. Newey has also left McLaren back in 2006 to join Red Bull, and his move was laughed off by many F1 experts due to the unseriousness that the fuzz drink company has been perceived at the time. But after 6 constructors and 7 drivers' championships, the perception has changed, and this is exactly what Newey aims to do with Aston Martin as well. After working so closely with Honda, the Brit is now in firm belief that he could make the engine and the mechanical parts of the Aston Martin work in perfect synergy with the aerodynamics of the car, something that the Silverstone-based squad has struggled massively with in the past couple of months under the leadership of Dan Fallows. Of course, being chief of aerodynamics in Red Bull and then running away from the team and becoming a technical director in another squad is not enough for you to proclaim yourself as a great technical mind. It takes a lot more than that, and Newey has it in his hand to offer it to other teams. The remote working, as well as the massive investment that have been made in Silverstone by Lawrence Stroll, combined with the unlimited financial support from Aramco, are some of the leading factors as to why Newey has decided that this is the right spot for him to continue his career. And with all of the technical reshuffle, it seems like Fallows goes out the window. This goes to show that maybe Newey's role in the team will be much more important, even though he stressed that the most important thing for him is to be close to home and even work remotely. Aston Martin could definitely provide this to him, as his influence over the last 2 cars in Red Bull has also been insignificant, if we are to believe Horner and Wache. But we've seen how much Red Bull dropped in performance once the new upgrades started to arrive, which, paradoxically enough, came at the same time with Newey's departure, and now it's hard to estimate whether the downfall of Red Bull and them being third or the fourth fastest car from being the most dominant force in the span of 8 races is related to Newey's departing. What is definitely known is that Aston Martin have their eyes set on the prize from 2026 onwards, and even though Alonso has a contract for this season, the Silverstone-based squad are now focused on signing Verstappen and bringing him alongside some familiar faces from Red Bull. Even though Verstappen declared his loyalty yet again to the Austrian squad, the situation has changed drastically after the latest move of Newey. In general, with the departure of Wheatley, it's safe to assume that the working environment in Red Bull is not what it used to be. And with how the car has reacted to the upgrades, or more precisely downgrades, given the fact that it has been caught up by McLaren and Mercedes in a couple of races, and these two teams are not nearly done when it comes to upgrading their cars, Verstappen would have a lot of issues defending the championship in the remainder of 2024. This could prompt him to think that when the table is restarted from ground zero in 2025, he would be in a lot of trouble given the fact that he hasn't won a race in the last 4 events, and the last 2 saw him finishing P5, which hasn't been witnessed in quite some time. Aston Martin's moves are based on proofs, and for you to have Adrian in close talks about joining your team, it's obvious that you have to show him that you mean business. As of now, what we do know is that the team has a new factory and a new wind tunnel from 2026, and on top of that, the exclusive partnership with Honda gives them a luxury that no other team apart from Audi and Red Bull's powertrain will have. But the independence from Mercedes will also see Aston Martin build their cars with their own gearbox and rear suspension, and obviously, Newey's knowledge would be fundamental here because he understands more than anybody else to what degree the rear suspension should be stiffened in order to act properly during this ground effect era. Yes, the rules change from 2026 onwards is definitely something that will reshape the entire grid, and we should be forgetting everything that we knew about Formula 1 so far, but nevertheless, the principles of correlation between the mechanical and the aerodynamical platform remain the same, and with Newey's help, Aston Martin would be one of the top candidates to win a lot of races and potentially challenge for the championship if Verstappen is to arrive as well. It's hard to imagine Aston Martin pulling this off because if there is a team that Verstappen would choose if he leaves Red Bull's nest, it would likely be Mercedes. But you should never say never, and what is even more important is that you should never think that something is certain just because it makes a lot of sense. At the beginning of Newey's rumors about his next team, it made a lot of sense to sign with Ferrari, but that has been dropped after some time because of Newey's wishes being made loud and clear. He wants to work as close to his home as possible, and Ferrari cannot promote nor offer that luxury. Now, the entire technical reshuffle in Aston Martin is something that we're about to see whether it will work or not, because if we are to look at how the team looks right now and how it's supposed to look with the arrival of Cadile and Newey, it's safe to assume that this is a massive change for the Silverstone-based squad. Of course, Fallows would likely step down from his role and would either be demoted or fired due to the lack of results, which goes to show that Lawrence Stroll does not play any games when it comes to scoring results as soon as possible. With all this in mind, do you think that Aston Martin is the right choice for Newey's continuation of his career? Let us know in the comments below.